So I've been working on my top games for 2024 ranking, and I like to use PubMeeple, the ranking system. It's a website that you can go to. It's actually a lot of fun. If you've never done your own top games of all time, it's fun just to go to see what it spits out to you. Because what you do is you go in, you put in your BGG username, and it will automatically load in all the games you own and then all the games you played. And what it does is it does these like one-on-one matches. And once you eventually do enough of these one-on-one matches of all these games you have, it will give you a top list, a top overall list, it's just a lot of fun to do. And you kind of get different results than what you might expect to get out of this. Like if you were going to just make your own list by just looking at the games you played, you kind of get a little bit different results than what you might expect, which is pretty interesting and something we look forward to doing every year. But one thing I noticed this year when I was making this list is this year and last year, I have a lot of games that end up in my top 9, top 10 games overall that I actually haven't played that often. Sometimes I've only played them once or twice. A lot of the games that end up in my top list are like this. And granted, that's because they are more complicated games that I just don't get to play that much because of the setup time, the play time. So it's just a matter of opportunities. But one thing I did learn from last year is this can potentially be a little bit of a flaw in how these games are ranked, because I think you need 3 plays to get like a good feel for a game sometimes. And an example of that ended up being Clash of Cultures Monumental Edition, which is a game that I had, I think, in maybe my top 3 last year. And it's this big, expansive, epic civilization game that I was in love with until the 3rd play, when we kind of realized that the reward for attacking other players is very little, and there's not much to incentivize you to go move your armies out of your base and your towns to go attack other people, which is kind of like the main fun of a lot of these civilization type games. So once we kind of realized there's no reason for me to move my armies out and I just need to play defensive, kind of killed the game a little bit for us. It's no longer in my top 10, but that had me thinking of all these other games that I have in my top 9 that I've only played once or twice. Some examples might be, just looking at my shelf here, Beyond the Sun I've only played once, but I had a blast playing. It has a very streamlined rule set, which tends to be, I love games that have a very streamlined rule set, but you get a lot out of them. Like they feel like a lot heavier game than what the actual rules are. That's a great example of that, along with Smartphone Inc. is a great example of that. But if I played Beyond the Sun 4 or 5 times, would I still have that same opinion? I hope I would. I think I would, but I'm not 100% sure. Another example, Circadian's Chaos Order is a really cool sci-fi area control type game too that I've played twice, and I think my opinion would say the same with that. So, but still 2 times, maybe if I did that 3rd time, like Clash of Cultures, maybe some flaw would show up that I wasn't aware of before. Another example, although I feel confident about this one now too, Burning Banners, which is this epic Lord of the Rings style fantasy war game with a giant sprawling map. But the first 2 times I played it was actually kind of duds for us. And because we realized the rules underneath were actually really good, you could kind of see that the game was going to be good, but the scenarios we picked were like really unbalanced, and they kind of killed those plays. But finally on the 3rd play, we played a really good scenario and had like this epic 4-player game that came down to the final roll. So that game like vaulted up into my top 9 games of all time. But anyways, it did have me thinking for 2025, maybe a good New Year's resolution should be for me to, these games, if they're going to be my top games of all time, maybe I need to be playing them more to make sure that they're that good before I make these lists. But so maybe that's the New Year's resolution. But we're working on our list now, and we should have our top 9 games of all time ready for you. Should be early January. I've kind of already done mine. Andrea needs to do hers. But yeah, you can be looking for that. There'll be a post coming up soon. That's just some thoughts that I had after making these top lists.